Okay, so this welcome everybody. We're going to be talking about sort of location intelligence related to business intelligence, and how we see that possibilities with the FME products. I'm working with that. Today it's myself, Mark Stokes, and we've got Iris with us.
Yes, hello everyone.
And on the Q&A end of things, we've got Robin and Dan as well joining us. So just the agenda is we've got a few introductory comments on Safe Software for those people that haven't used our software or bumped into our software very much in the past. And then we're just going to be talking about location intelligence. We've sort of split it out into three areas: the data integration area, spatial relationships, and making decisions with that data. And then we'll wrap up with a Q&A. Talking of people who haven't used the FME before, just so we can sort of find out a little bit about our audience. We're going to run a poll here to find out who is using FME currently. So how do I do that, Iris? I just go, are you using that? And then I launch that poll.
Yep, it looks like we've got the poll up there. So
so give a couple of moments. How do we know who's answering? Oh, yeah. Numbers are jumping around wildly here. It's hard to keep track. Quite a lot of people using FME, but for simple translations. That's interesting. So what do? I'm going to close that poll, and hopefully that shows the results.
Let's close that, and oh, you can share the results here.
Share the results. There we go.
So a lot of people for simple translations and data integration.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Not too many people. Sometimes in these webinars we get a lot of people that haven't bumped into FME before, so that's good. And then using FME for automation and reporting very low, and that probably reflects some of the tools that we have in FME. So hopefully Iris will enlighten us a little bit later on using polls. Using reporting, I mean, yeah. I mentioned we've got Robin and Dan here to help answer any questions that you have, and we'll have a kind of a Q&A summary at the end and try and go through some interesting questions that have come out of the discussion. So on your GoToWebinar panel, there is a questions panel there, and you can just fire off those as we go. If we don't have time or the knowledge of a particular question at the moment, we will follow up. And I should say that the webinar is being recorded, and so we'll put that up on our website, and the examples that we have produced here we'll also be putting up on the website so that you can download them and steal ideas if there's anything there that helps you. So for those people that want to get those examples, they will be put up on the website. So just a quick introduction to us as Safe Software. We're here in Metro Vancouver, located in the Surrey Business Park here. There's about 100 of us here at Safe. We have partners worldwide helping us support and sell the product, so they're a big asset to us, and we work very closely with those. And we have a wide user base here at Safe, so over 10,000 organizations using FME in various capacities, and from very sophisticated work, I would say, to what's reflected in that poll there. So I think we still have a large number of people who use FME for sort of relatively simple translations, and obviously we'd always like to, the purpose of these webinars is to try and get you using the value that you've got out of your licenses a little bit more, and so hopefully we can give you ideas on how maybe you can use those licenses a little bit more extensively now that you have them, if you are just sort of a ad hoc user of FME. So what we do, well, we're hoping that we can help you connect to your data, transform it, and get the best out of the data as you move it from one place to another. And also a large part of our focus in the last while has been around automation with a related product that we have, FME Server. We're not going to be going into too much any FME Server today, are we, Iris?
Not in our demos.
Yeah.
But,
Pretty well anything that we show today could be automated with FME Server, and then you could also put that on our product as a service. The FME Cloud product is a different deployment of FME Server, so you could also automate up there in the cloud if you wanted to. So we're going to be focusing today on the connection and the transformation part of FME. If you are new to FME, we've got a web page there that will help you get started. So if you want to, if you are just at this webinar just seeing how FME can help you, you can go to the fme.com and getting started. Let's have a quick look at that. Here we go. And so this web page will lead you sort of through the resources that you can get access to as somebody just getting going with FME, starting with free online training, looking at some of the previous webinars that we've recorded, and also a whole set of videos that we have on various aspects of FME, through to getting a download and a free trial of FME. So have a look at that page there if you're relatively new to FME. Also, we have a weekly introductory demo, usually run by myself and, whoops, that's not coming up, one of my colleagues. There's a link that's not working on this thing here. It's okay. And you can register for that. That's every Thursday we run a webinar that introduces FME and also covers how FME and FME Desktop and FME Server interrelate. So you can have a look at that and explore our products a little bit more in that way. But let's move on to the topic of the day, which is sort of around location intelligence. It seems as we've sort of started working in the space over the last couple of years, we get lots of kind of different interpretations of what location intelligence might be.
Yep.
And so it really depends on who you are and what your perspective is and what industry you're working in, really, as well, whether you're in retail, insurance, utilities who are doing sort of risk assessment and risk analysis will sort of flavor how you look at that data. So the more cynical people, looking around at different ways that people have sort of talked about location intelligence, have just said that, well, it's just a new buzzword for what we've always done in geographic information systems. So I don't think I quite agree with that one, but that is out there. Just a way to visualize spatial data, understand relationships between location-based data, making better strategic business decisions. In many ways, I think it's just bringing, for traditional business intelligence people, as the spatial world has become more ubiquitous, I think really it just gives those traditional business intelligence users who probably always looked at their data through spreadsheets and other reporting mechanisms, charting, just a different way to see the data that they've always been working with, but in a more spatial and geographic context. And then is spatial intelligence just a way of combining location-related data with other business data? So that's that, allowing you to see your business data with a different perspective. Just a different way of looking at your data and getting the best out of the data. In terms of the way that FME works with business data and location intelligence kind of data, we've kind of split it out into 3 parts, how you might use our product and work through a problem in FME in the space. And that is around data integration, which is, whoops, that messed things up. So that's around data integration, bringing together data from disparate data sets, and now obviously with location intelligence that also includes some spatial data. The spatial relationships, so how the data interacts with each other in a spatial context, and then we've tagged it as better decisions, which is the kind of reporting and summary side of the problem. And so we're going to work through each of those step by step. Okay, we're going to run another poll here. The polls. I think that we've only got 2 polls today.
So this is the last one here.
Okay, so let's bring that up. So what kind of spatial intelligence are you looking for? So I'm just going to launch that.
All right.
We should have put up their risk assessment, really, I guess, because that is...
It's in the second one, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay, risk management, yeah.
Yep.
So,
just to get an idea of what people are doing so far that we would kind of group under this this broad
spreadsheet processes. Okay, so just working with spreadsheets, quite a few people in demographics. Okay, so I think we'll close that off. Yep, still a couple of people throwing in their bids. All right, and let's have a look at that. So site planning, so that's kind of interesting. A lot of people around kind of retail sort of work, I would guess there. Risk management, well, both insurance and risk management. So the risk management could also be more around utilities. Now there's a lot of pressure, particularly in the States, for tracking where your assets are and what kind of population density those assets are running through. If it's a pipeline, for example, what kind of risk to the population that might imply. Demographic data, so pulling in demographic data, and spreadsheet processes. Yeah, so we've done a lot recently on our Excel reader and writer to help that a bit, and you're going to be showing a bit of that later on.
Yes, yep, as well as a little bit of a site planning example too, so that's good.
Okay, so let's have a look first at data integration. So that's the first step in the location intelligence sort of arena. To start off there, we'll just have a quick demo here. I'll bring up FME Workbench, and so for those of you that haven't really seen our products too much, and this is new to you, so this will just be a quick introduction to working in Workbench. So I've got some simple data, and I'm just going to pull that together. I've got some data points. This is a CSV file that represents some measurement data that has been taken around the area. We're working in the city of Vancouver mostly here with our sample data that we've got. Most of our readers and writers have parameters that enable you to fine-tune the way that you read that data. And here what we've got is the ability, if you have some tabular kind of data, but it does have a latitude or a longitude pair of, you can make a point out of that right away as you read the data. So you can sort of spatialize the data as you go. So that applies to both the CSV reader and the Excel reader that we've added over or upgraded over the last a couple of releases. Because I'm going to make that spatial data, I'm going to give it the coordinate system, so it's probably going to be in LL84, and we can throw that in there. Okay, so we've got one reader. Then what I'm going to do is bring in a data set that is got some neighborhood information. So our experience has been that a lot of people working in spatial intelligence and business intelligence arena, often MapInfo users, aren't they? They've got MapInfo is a nice lightweight GIS system and seems to meet their needs in many ways. So a lot of those users have that. So now we've got two data sets that we're reading in. One part of the sort of data integration process is often just cleaning up your data. So if you have some data and you need to clean it up, get rid of parts of fields or something, you can do that. So we've got a lot of tools in FME for doing that. I've got a string, going to add in here a string replacer transformer. And I've got, we can have a look at that CSV file. Just to show what we've got. So I've got a field here called the code, and what I want to do is strip off these characters at the start of that code. There's always a few ways to solve a problem in FME, but I'm going to use a string replacer, and I'm going to just say I want to work with that code value, and I'm going to add in here a regular expression, something like anything from A to Z. Oops, I've got a curly bracket in there. A to Z several times. That's an asterisk, I think. And then I'm going to replace that with nothing. And so that will basically drop off any alpha characters at the start of that field. As we go, we can always just check how we're doing to see that we've got data in the right place. I always do that with the CSV file, just in case I've got my X and Y
yes,
coordinates.
if you have your data in the wrong place, it's always good
End
to
up
check
in
those.
Moscow or somewhere.
Then
That's a good area. So these are the neighborhood boundaries that we've got, and these are the data points that we're working with. So that's a simple case of bringing together some data from different data sets, doing some very simple cleaning, and then we can look at different ways of that data interacting. And in this context here, we want to see which data points sit inside which neighborhoods. So we can use one of our spatial tools. So in this case, I'm going to use the point on area overlay tool to throw in here. And we've got the points coming from there, the areas coming from here. And so if there is a match of a point inside an area, what happens is the attributes get swapped. And so you can see from our neighborhoods data set, we've only got one attribute on that, which is the neighborhood name. On coming out of the points here, we've got all the attributes that were on the point as well as the neighborhood name. So if a point falls inside a neighborhood, it'll get that attribute. Then we want to put that out somewhere. So again, we'll maybe just stick that out to a MapInfo data set and give it an output folder to go to, and ask it to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically be replicating the data points. So I'm going to duplicate that on the writer. So we have the same, essentially the same schema going out there. And what I also want to add is that neighborhood attribute. So I'm just going to copy that from the other feature type, which is our neighborhoods feature type. So we can add that attribute there. And we've got something odd going on with the timestamp, but we can do that as well. So we've got all the attributes from the source going out. We probably want to relabel this data points again or something like that. If we wanted to, we could rename attributes, remove attributes we don't want, and there we can quickly get a result. And we can then open that in the containing folder. And if we've got the data inspector available open, that was the source data we were looking at there, so we can drag on this and have a look at it and see how that looks in relation to the other data. And so we'll turn off that other data, and so here's those data points with their neighborhoods. I've got something going wrong there, but we'll leave that for now. Okay.
Okay. So that's just a good intro of
just
getting
a
started.
quick intro of getting started there. All right, so let's have a look at a little bit more sophisticated example. Go back into this folder here. And I'm not going to build that from scratch. I've got an example that we've pulled up. We're not going to be building most of our workspaces from scratch here. So this is just a bit more of a sort of a broader example of bringing together data from quite disparate data sets and merging and blending them together. So this is pretty typical, more typical, I think, of a workflow that's coming together here. They can get relatively complex. So the first side of it is the data you're reading. And so in this case, we're reading in businesses from the City of Vancouver Open Data set, actually, which is in this case a bunch of food truck. We're reading in a table of business licenses that the City of Vancouver puts up on its open data sharing account. And we've got a couple of spatial data sets that are in MapInfo format. That's the city boundaries and the same data we were looking at earlier on, the neighborhood boundaries. And then also we're reading from a database, in this case a cloud database, so that's a little different, but probably pretty typical of somebody doing business intelligence kind of data, so we can look at that. As with most of our database readers, we can throw in queries and do more sophisticated queries back to the database. And if you are working with data that originates in database, that would be our philosophy in general, would be to say, get the database to do the work where you can. And so in this case here, we're just doing a query on a Salesforce database looking for any accounts in Vancouver. And we're just making sure with adding in there with the country, so we don't pick up any accounts that might be in Vancouver, Washington State. And then, again, typical of this kind of data blending is some sort of data cleanup. And so you might want to filter out data or get rid of bad data. We were looking at just cleaning data earlier on. Here, what we're doing is we're just filtering, looking for a specific business, which is food vendors in the City of Vancouver, that we're going to see how close they are to some of the accounts, customer accounts in the Salesforce database. Cleaning data can also be thought of as being a spatial filtering task. So we've got a lot of tools in FME for doing that kind of work. In this case, I'm using the spatial filter, and so if the area, if the point is contained in the area, in this case the city boundary, we're going to use that. And then we've also got some other kind of filtering tools and conditional filtering tools. The test filter here, we could also, if we wanted to check for customers that differentiate between customers in the US or Canada or elsewhere. So that's kind of more conditional testing. Along the way, we've got a lot of tools for adding value as well to the data sets. And in this case here, we're using some external geocoding tools. We've plugged into the ArcGIS online geocoder. We could have used the Google geocoder as well. So we've plugged into quite a few of those kind of external tools where you can add value to the data. So what we're doing is actually geocoding our customer accounts there. Well, I'm going to start this running while I'm talking here. Okay, and then so the next phase in that data integration step of business intelligence or location intelligence, we think is around joining and merging or aggregating data in different ways. And again, the tools, individual tools you use in FME to do that will vary depending on what the source of your data is. In this case here, we're reading in Excel data, and just go back to that. We're reading in Excel data and a database, and so we can't really do a SQL query because we're merging data from some of it from a non-SQL data set, which is an Excel file. So if we had pure database data, we would be able to use a tool, something like the SQL executor or something like that. In this case, we're doing an in-memory join with the feature merger, and we're just looking at the business names, hoping that the business names align. And then we can also aggregate data by doing spatial overlay. So we already saw that in the first quick demo there, the point and area overlayer. And also we can do neighbor finding. So I've got here a geographic neighbor finder, which is looking at the point data and merging it together. So different ways of blending together data to get the result you need. And then I'm not going to worry too much about the results of this case. Iris is going to go into that a little bit more, and we'll have a look at that. So that's kind of really the three main ways, areas in the data integration phase that you can think of in FME, which is the actual data itself, obviously integrating different formats together and different sources of data, bringing together or cleaning up the data so that, and cleaning and adding value to your data through the various tools, filtering tools in FME, and some of the geocoding. We've got some other kind of tools around that area in the geocoding, like drive time polygons, and also you could probably include in there demographic data that Iris is going to talk about a little later on. Merging or joining data together with the various tools in FME, and then producing the output that you're interested in there. And in this case here, the data is really just a series of set of point data that we're creating for businesses and how close they are to different food vendors. So we could change the color of some of these just so that we can differentiate between customer locations, the best lunch spots, which are those nearest the customer locations, and so on. We got any questions up, Iris? That,
We've had some, I think we had someone ask about tokenizing strings. So I think you may have, I don't know if we've shown that yet, but there is the string splitter transformer. We've had some people asking about various types of integrations here. And like, for instance, you were asking about SAP. We don't currently have an integration for that.
No, we don't have one of those yet, but our understanding is that in SAP there are various ways of exposing the data with their tools. So you can create the equivalent of views, or you can create sort of web services that FME could certainly hit up as well. So we could we haven't really played around with that. Obviously we don't have SAP here, but we're pretty sure that we could get connections to some of the data to extract it. Loading it would be a whole different story, I think, for us. Sorry, the tokenizing, that was kind of an interesting one, and I could have touched on that in that first demo. So when I was replacing those first digits, the first 3 characters of the code value instead of doing that, we could have just split that out with a string attribute.
I think it's the attribute splitter
Attribute
is the way
splitter,
to do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yep. And you
So
can
we can split on a delimited value or on a string pattern as well, a string format. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And we did get one last question there about drive time polygons, and I just say sit tight. We'll be showing that towards the end.
Yeah, Iris has got a nice, very nice sort of catch-all demo that will go through that. So these, just in summary, these are these kind of the pieces of the data integration steps that we have. The data formats, these are kind of the typical formats that we're seeing in the space: Excel, CSV. We call it CSV here, but it's any delimited text file. So often people are getting data dumps out of a database, and that will often be a tab delimited data set. You would still use the CSV reader for that. Databases, obviously, more cloud databases coming up, Salesforce being one, and then GIS as well. In the kind of retail insurance areas, we're seeing MapInfo as being the more common GIS platform in those arenas, but there's no reason that the data couldn't come from any other GIS system. Merging data and filtering data. Okay, so the next phase that we see in our spatial location intelligent kind of thing is the idea of spatial relationships and how the data relates to other data or to itself. Often the analysis is, how far am I away from other data points within this same data set. So the kind of I think probably the most common ones that we've encountered, the kind of spatial interaction tools that we're finding users in FME are using anyway, are spatial filtering, like the point on area overlaying that I was illustrating before and didn't quite work that first time. So that's just taking a set of points, comparing it with areas, which points are inside which areas, maybe picking up the attribution from those areas. And then the other kind of area that we really see a lot of work people doing in spatial relationship is point-to-point kind of relationships. So either with the same data set, so how close am I to other entities in this data set? So an example of that would be cell towers. What are the closest 3 other cell towers that this cell tower is related to? And or the other one might be different data sets where you're comparing one data set with another, and you just want to know which point you're closest to. And then there are other tools in there that we weren't going to go into too much depth here around kind of linear work. So if you are looking at kind of risk assessment kind of work around pipeline kind of information, we've got buffering tools that you can use, so you can buffer a line and then find out might be what kind of population are close to different segments of that gas pipeline and so on. And then another interesting one that one of our customers came up with was actually using Voronoi polygons to do neighborhood finding. So that's one of the examples I thought I would show this morning. So let's have a look at a couple of workspaces that do different spatial relationship kind of interactions. Okay. All right, so just nearest neighbor kind of, or the nearest and dearest kind of relationship. So this is where we've got a set of data points, and could be cell towers or something, and we just want to find out what were the other closest cell towers to that, or other measuring points. In this case, these are data points or measuring points. So we've got the neighbor finder. I've wrapped that up in a custom transformer that does some reprojection. So this is the neighbor finder here. So that's just comparing every point with every other point, and you can enter in here a search distance to find out a search radius for the sort of zone of influence for that. And then again, some sort of data cleanup and restructuring is typical in FME. So in this case here, for the 3 points that are the closest, we're going to grab the code number so that we know which codes there are. And then at the bottom here, what I'm also creating, just for visualization purposes more than anything, are vectors that illustrate how those points relate to each other. So we've got a vertex creator where we can add the candidate point to. So I just run that quickly. And so we're looking for points that are within 250 meters of each other. And so here's a set of points here, and these little lines here are the vectors that illustrate how those points are related to each other. And on the nearest neighbors, what we're ending up with is we see the original point and then the nearest 1 or 2 or 3 points that are related to that. So that's the result of that from a very common tool in the space, which is the neighbor finder. Okay, the second one I was going to just illustrate, there's obviously such a wide range of spatial interactions that you can do, but I thought was interesting was kind of for solving problems, I think, where it's a bit more of a one-to-many relationship. You want to find out which set of points is closest to another set of points. And so this was more of a risk analysis kind of problem. Some event points along a route, and I wanted to find out which were the nearest zip code 9 locations so that they could do some addressing on people that might be affected by an event along this route. So we've got the route events. This is, in this case, I'm reading the data from a SQL Service spatial database. So I've got the point data, 2 sets of point data, the event data and the zip code. I think this is zip 9 data sets. And then just doing some duplicate removing here, removing the duplicate zip points that are in that data set. And then here, this tool here creates a Voronoi diagram, and then we do a point on area overlay. So let's have a run that and see how that works. So a Voronoi polygon is interesting because the seed point that creates the polygon, any other point that falls inside that polygon is closest to that seed point than any other point in the data set that was used to create the data set.
So these are handy in a lot of different areas, like site selection. You might use that in a way to model.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
very handy analysis tool.
And just in that workspace there, again, if you've got a database and you can use it, what we've doing there is a simple spatial query. There's other ways of doing that in FME, but that's one way of reducing the size of the data set that you want to run for any particular analysis. So if we just zoom in here onto some of these Voronoi polygons. So this is the seed point, which is one of the zip 9 points, zip code 9 points for that data set. So any point, any of the event points that fall inside this particular Voronoi polygon that's generated from that seed point is going to be closer to that zip 9 point than any other of the other zip 9 points. So this is a very quick way of determining kind of one-to-many spatial relationships. Okay, so that was a couple of the spatial relationship demos that we thought we would flick through. The next phase of the discussion is around better decisions. So I'm going to hand the reins over to Iris.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So in this section, we're going to kind of think about how we can best summarize and combine all of the results we got from integrating our data and determining spatial relationships, and think about the best ways to use this to make better decisions, whether that's a site selection decision or a risk management decision. So there's numerous different ways we can generate outputs that summarize that kind of summarize the results of our data integration and analysis. So commonly used formats are Excel and PDF, and these are great for generating reports that you can share with colleagues. We can also output to, we have over 300 different formats, so we can output to GIS and other formats that you can view in those kind of tools as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can automate some common tasks. Perhaps a lot of people have to generate a daily report. They need to fit a standardized template and generate this report on a daily basis so that they can monitor the progress of various things they're working on. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So we'll go into some examples with charting and generating those type of reports. So I think I'll just launch right into my demos here.
Okay.
So my first one here is going to be an Excel templating demo. And I'm going to show how you can use a lot of the functionality in Excel to have a template, an Excel template, which is a kind of a blank Excel file. So I will just, the best way to do this is to show it.
Just make you the presenter
here. All right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen with you. So as I was talking about, what we can do in FME is we can kind of read a blank Excel file and populate it with new data. So here I've kind of got a blank Excel template that in this example, I'm using cell tower quality data like Mark used in his earlier example. I've got one sheet that has blank space for my data. I've got a chart here, and also a nice cover page with a company logo and a space for a username and the time of report generation. So I have this workspace here that I've devised that's going to read in data from CSV. So this is the kind of thing you might get internally on a daily basis. You get a big CSV file of data, and you're expected to put it into Excel to generate a nice report with charts. And a lot of times I've seen people do this kind of in a tedious way, copy and paste the CSV into Excel, manually set up the charts, and there are people that are doing this every day. So we want to just show you how you can set this up once in FME and then just run this again and again with new data as it comes in. So here I've got, again, this CSV file of cell tower signals. We're doing a little bit of attribute manipulation. I think Mark went into this earlier. We're formatting a date. We've got a date attribute here with day, month, year, and we're gonna change it to numeric format. We've got that attribute splitter that I think someone asked about earlier. So I think we're tokenizing here. Yeah, we're splitting up on actually a regular expression here of to split out the. I think we're doing the same thing you did in that earlier example here, just a little bit differently, just to show the numerous options that you can make use of in FME. So again, we're just splitting the numbers off the beginning of that attribute. We can also rename attributes. And finally here, we're going to show you one of our useful tools. We're generating some statistics with a transformer called the statistics calculator. And this allows you to group up your data by a variety of unique combinations. Here we're grouping it by the date and that value of that field there. And you can see we have a wide variety of statistics that we can take here. I'm just taking the average because that's all I'm interested in today. And I'm just going to run it into that sheet here in this Excel file. And I've also got a little bit of work here to repopulate that title page with my name and the current date, just so that's up to date. So I'll just run this one quickly. And we can take a look at our results in Excel once this finishes here. Wait on this. All right, so it looks like it's done. I'm just going to show you a neat trick for opening, you know, we can always, as Mark showed, you can look at things in the data inspector, but sometimes in the case of Excel, you want to look at it right, and it's, sorry, that's the old one. So we want to look at it right in Excel, so I will just pull this in. So now we see that blank template. We used it. We've populated our data here. We've populated it with our data values. This chart has been automatically populated, and the title page now has my name on it and the timestamp indicating when it was run. So this is just a very basic example. We can, of course, get a lot more complex with these type of templating examples. We also have the ability to write formulas in Excel, so you can have complex sheets with formulas, and also any type of chart or pivot table in Excel we can populate with the data used to create it. So that refreshes automatically whenever, and you can create new files on a daily basis.
Yeah, so you could have an Excel template that included an Excel pivot function,
yes,
and populate that, or FME's got its own pivot tool in there, so there is an attribute pivoter as well.
yes.
But actually, we think in many cases doing the pivot in Excel works really well as well.
Yeah, so that's useful. So you can really you can do quite a bit. Essentially, we're just repopulating the base data here, and then any charts or anything you've set up to use that data will automatically be refreshed with the new data when you reopen it in Excel. So that's a really a neat tool, for especially since so many people use Excel to generate their reports. Now this next example is a little bit more interesting. This is kind of a site selection example. So what I've done here is, so the setup is I have a prospective location, and I'm using this to just create a point with latitude and longitude coordinates, using our vertex creator transformer here to create my point. I'm also using, I think I have a prompt here to enter the values so the user can enter them when they're run. So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to look at just the immediate area with just a straight radius around my point. I'm using our geographic buffer transformer to do that. And I'm also, as someone was asking about earlier, generating a drive time from this point. And this isn't a built-in capability in FME, but we can connect to services for this. And in this case, I'm connecting to the ArcGIS Online drive time service. So ArcGIS Online has a REST-based service that allows you to generate drive times. So we can connect to that and retrieve the results by sending them a point. We get back drive time polygons. I can then take this data, format it a little bit, and here what I'm showing is something that people may want to commonly use in site selection, is to get some demographic data and determine the population within either their drive time polygons or this radius polygon. Here I'm just kind of connecting to an internal database that I made, SQLite database of US Census data. But there's numerous options here, as I think Mark mentioned a little bit before the webinar starts. Both Esri has an ArcGIS Online, I believe, demographics transformer, and we also have other partners such as Tetrad, who make tools for bundling up demographics data, making it easy to extract that in FME.
So that's in a database, though. You've loaded that into a database?
This is my own internal database that I created, and this is this is using free US Census data. And so here I'm going to take the demographic information. I think I'm taking median income and population there, and I'm just going to kind of use that to create a summary table. I want to create a table in my PDF report. So I've got one of my custom transformers that's going to set up my table there with all the values that I want. I'm also going to generate a little map using the polygons that I've made, both the drive time and the radius, and some background map data, and just spit this out into a PDF. So I have pre-run this just before, so I'm just going to open this open containing folder and show you the results of this kind of PDF work. So here we see I've set up a report. These are my drive time polygons from ArcGIS Online. Here's the radius polygon I created, and here at the bottom here I've generated a nice little table with the various demographics, the average household size, median income for each of these polygons that I've created. So this could give me some information on what's located around the store and help me make a decision. Is this a good place to locate a business or not? And again, this is a PDF report. There's numerous options for reports. We could have just output these polygons into MapInfo. We could have generated an Excel file, but just to show you, you've got numerous different output options there.
Yeah, that's really good. And the demographics component is key there, isn't it? So
yes.
It's getting the right data out of that demographic data set. And of course, there's loads of, or not loads, but quite a few different people who are selling different demographic data sets, adding value to those data with the predictive population sets. So we could have hooked into one of those here. Like Iris said, she was just using the US Census data, but we could have hooked into data from some of the data providers who do more of that sort of predictive demographic data as well. Okay.
Okay, so I think we're getting close to the end of the hour. We have a few more slides here.
So let me go back to the presenter thing. Okay, so that was the templating example with Excel that I was showing. And then standardized PDF reporting, creating maps and tables in a PDF report in FME. If anybody's interested in doing that, we'll certainly be interested in helping you do that. It's not totally straightforward, but Iris has put together a couple of really nice custom transformers and a PDF templating tool to get started there. So that's a good way to go. Okay, so I think that wraps it up for the presentations we were going to do on the location intelligence. Hopefully that kind of raised some awareness of the tools that FME have that fit within that kind of workflow. Coming up in some of the upcoming webinars, we've got how to leverage ArcGIS online with FME. So that will probably go into a little bit more on some of the tools that Iris was using there and more.
Yep.
Isn't that right?
Yep.
Are you're doing that one as well?
I believe it's Laura.
Oh, it's Laura doing
yes,
that. Yeah.
So.
Okay. And then we've got more for the European folks who might be listening in. We've got a webinar coming up on working with Inspire data within FME, particularly around using our new GML tool, so that's kind of fun. We've got the World Tour coming up, starts in actually late March, I think, but April through to June, doing 15 cities here or 16 cities in North America. We've got 3 groups going out on the East, Central, and West coasts, and can brag as well, traipsing around large parts of Europe with some of our resellers. And then most exciting this year, the International User Conference coming up in June. It's to celebrate our SAFE's 20th anniversary, so hopefully many of you can make it to that, go to the registration form there. And I think already the outline of presentations pretty well exclusively from all our users. What they've been using FME for is up there. A lot of great presentations. Yeah. If you want to learn more about FME, go to our online course registration. We have free hands-on training run by a couple of people, usually the trainer and somebody doing Q&A. In Europe, a lot of our resellers are also running training, so the online training, the time frame isn't always the best with the time zone differences. So our resellers are also doing a lot of training in Europe, so that's on the training calendar as well. So the next online training course, March 18th to 19th. And stay informed. So there's lots and lots of resources in on our websites, the FME community just been updated, so that's working a little bit better than it was, I hope. The knowledge base, YouTube channel, and the FME blog where our colleague Mark Ireland writes his FME Evangelist articles, so that's always worth looking at. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of Q&A, I think. I think Robin and Dan were going to chime in, and pick up some of the more interesting questions. So let's see what we've got there. Dan, did you pick up anything there that somebody fired up that was interesting or too tough to answer?
Yeah, well, someone had a question about Google Fusion tables. Can that be used, I guess, with Excel as a template?
Unfortunately, I don't think that's possible. But we can write to Google Fusion tables. There's just no templating capability there. Yeah.
Okay.
Robin, you got anything? Oh, Robin's sound is not working, so she's trying to tell us a question, but there we go.
I'm back on the air. This has been a pretty quiet bunch, so most of the questions you answered during the process. I was interested myself to know whether those PDF custom transformers, are they available on the store? Like, is it possible?
Yes, definitely. The table adder is. I believe there may be a few that aren't, but we'll be looking into getting those there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you might want to check out the table adder. I think that's one of the useful ones to get those tables in their formatted table into your PDF. That should be on the store right now.
PDF template or transformer as well.
And of course, there was the question earlier on about connecting to SAP. And Cognos, actually. So they're both database driven. Provided those tools will allow you to create some sort of a view or a web service, FME would be able to connect into that. Writing to them, as I mentioned earlier on, would be a bit more tricky, I think, in FME.
Actually, Brad's question in that regard was rather more about integrating a sort of a display tool into those products so that we could show, they could display their output within the product. So that was rather an interesting enhancement request. So I might just pass that along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is that it from you guys on the question side?
Yeah, I think so.
But great presentation. I learned something out of that session too.
Okay. Well, it's one of the rare days I think that we're even ahead of time slightly, not just on time. So feel free to contact us if there's any questions that arose there that you didn't have time to ask while you were watching the webinar. As we mentioned earlier on, the recording of the webinar should be put up on the website at some point, along with the examples that we were showing here. And the one that will work at the very first one there, where I got I think the coordinates switched the wrong way around. Of course, anytime if you've got a question about FME, hit up our support team, and one of us here, or one of our colleagues, Iris, Robin, Dan, or one of the others will help you get back on track as well. And of course, you can always hit up Iris and I directly if there's something related to this webinar.
Yes, yeah.
So otherwise, I think that's goodbye from me and goodbye from Iris. So we'll put it all on pause.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, bye.
Okay.